What's up, guys? It's Mainichi Jake here. So for my first video, I have just decided that I want to focus on learning Japanese and some tips that I learned the fucking hard way during my time spent in Japan, learning the language, my time before I went to Japan when I was taking classes in college and talking with friends and going to Japanese club and all this different stuff. So I just want to talk with you about what works, what doesn't work, and most importantly, the mentality that you need to have if you really want to learn stuff, okay? So let's get into it. So my quick story, I started learning Japanese in college. I went to university, had to take a language. I really had no desire to learn Japanese at first. I actually took French, took a semester of French and hated it, absolutely hated it. It was just, like, I couldn't get over the accent. I didn't like the way it sounded to me. Nothing about it worked for me. So I ended up dropping that class. I was looking for something else. And I had the options of Spanish, German, French, and Japanese. Spanish, I'd done in high school, didn't really care for, even though it's probably the most effective for me in Southern California. German, same, I didn't really like the way it sounded. It was a little too rough for me, even though I think it's a cool language now. And so I just kind of left Japanese. I was like, hey, what the hell, let's do it. You know, my buddies at the time, you know, I'd always played baseball. I was playing baseball in college, and I wasn't super into anime or anything at that time. I learned to like it, but they were always watching Dragon Ball Z and all this other cool shit that I had no idea what was going on. I didn't even know it was Japanese at the time. Anyways, fast forward. Long story short is I started taking Japanese at school. Awesome instructor, awesome teacher's assistant. They really devoted themselves not just to helping us learn Japanese, but to learn the culture, get familiar with Japanese lifestyle, just everything, like the full shebang. And what that ended up doing is I developed this love for it. I took 2 semesters of it. Honestly, looking back on it, I didn't learn crap. You know, I tried to learn hiragana, katakana. I could write it down somewhat. Could say your basic konnichiwa and, you know, basic stuff, but I really hadn't learned anything. And at the time, I thought that what I needed to do was I needed the right workbook or the right class, or I needed to, you know, get a Japanese language friend, and they could teach me if I had someone that was really, you know, was native to the language and all this stuff. And I tried all these things, and like nothing, it just wasn't coming. And eventually, go into a different story later, but I ended up moving to Japan after college, and my big desire was to learn the language. I mean, I wanted to travel. I had been to Japan once before. It was an awesome experience. You know, I did the JET program, if anyone's familiar with that. We'll talk about that later too. But I got into that program and moved out to Japan after college. And I got put in the middle of nowhere, absolute sticks. If you guys want to look it up, I was in a city. The city name was Kiryu in Gunma, Japan. But I was actually in a village named Kurohone Mura. And this village, man, I mean, like, closest supermarket was like a 45 minute drive down the mountain. I was the only one I knew that, you know, other gaijin foreigners that had a car, because everywhere else, people could ride their bikes to school, get around. Train system's great in Japan. But I was so far on the sticks, I had to have a car. So that was a trip too. But I got there, man, and I was the only person that spoke English. No one else. Even my instructor, the English instructor, she was great, awesome lady, but her English wasn't even that great. You know, the person who had the best English was the PE teacher. So him and I goofed off a lot. But I mean, I'm talking. There was. I have this one story of I would sit with my kids during lunchtime, and I was working with some kindergartners one day. And I'm sitting next to this little girl, and she's just staring at me like bug-eyed, like what is this giant white dude standing next to me? And I'm looking at her, and I could speak a little bit Japanese at this point. And she just kind of stares at me, and she's like, in Japanese, she could barely speak Japanese. She was still learning that for herself. She says, "Why are your eyes blue?" And I mean, if that gives you any idea of how much of the country and sticks where I was at, that should do it, because she had never seen someone that was not Japanese before. She had never seen someone with blue eyes, anyone that looked like me. So I was just this complete novel anomaly to her. But it was a great experience. But so like fast forward, so I got there and I started learning, right? And I thought, okay, now that I'm in Japan, I am gonna start figuring things out. It's gonna start connecting in my brain. And like couple weeks, 3 weeks go by of me being there, and I was learning a little bit, but it just was not at the pace I wanted it to go. And I was getting so frustrated. And the program I was in, they gave you these workbooks that you could use to help you learn. The teachers were helping me as best they could, but nothing was connecting. I just couldn't get it. And then one day I was coming across some different stuff online and talking about languages, right? And these different learning applications that can be used to kind of help boost your memory. So the one that I had used, oh God, what was the name? Fuck. I'll have to come back to that. But there was this application that I used online. It basically was just flashcards, right? There's a bunch of them out there now, I'm pretty sure. But so there was these flashcards, but they were blank. And what I needed to do, or what I decided on doing, I said, you know what? Screw this stuff. I'm not going to do these workbooks anymore. I'm not going to do, talking with people, sitting out, having these classes with them, because it wasn't working. And I tell you right now, if you focus on workbooks and thinking that you're going to get it just by like talking to someone here and there, you'll pick up a little stuff, but you're not really going to learn it. Okay, in order to really learn Japanese or any language, you have to hard commit to it. I mean, unless you're just gifted with learning languages. I certainly was not. I had a full commit. And so I would spend 8 hours a day studying. In between every one of the classes I was teaching, I got done, I started studying. And what I would do is I started with just TV. I got a Japanese dictionary, and I would watch TV, and I would buy manga. Okay, the Shonen Jump ones. Like at the time, Naruto was super popular. Bleach was super popular. My favorite was Naruto. But anything like that, because it would show. You could take the sentences that they talked about in the comic. It was all in Japanese, but as long as you knew the hiragana, you could figure it out. And so what I would do is I would take those, and I would watch TV. And I would just try to pick out, this is very starting, just pick out one word. That's it, just one word. So, for example, I'd be watching TV, they'd be hearing all this stuff, and I would hear, a lot of people will know this already, but I hear like, nani, right? Nani? And you're like, oh, okay. So that word became clear to me, right? I would listen. I'm like, okay, oh, nani, they're saying nani, but what does that mean, right? And so I would take that catch that I had, I'd go to my dictionary, I'd type it in, okay? And so of course it would come in Japanese, it would give me the English translation. But what made it effective was it gave me the English translation, but it also gave example sentences underneath, okay? And that is the key part of this. If you learn a word just for the word itself, it's only going to get you so far. You'll forever be stuck sounding like a 2-year-old, right? Like, oh, me, want, toy. You won't be able to make sentences. You won't be able to sound like someone who can speak naturally, right? And so I'd take those words and I would never learn anything that wasn't in a full sentence. So then then it was the hard part, right? So I had that one word, I had nani, and I get the example sentence, but I didn't know jack shit about any of the other words, right? Like the only word I knew was nani, and all these other words I had to look up, and I had to do the same thing over and over and over. And it is so time intensive. But if you put in the work and you study that way, it will pay much bigger dividends in the end. It's easy to learn a word quick here, but if you really want to learn it and really learn it and have it stick, and where you can use it and you can go out and talk with people and enjoy speaking another language, you have to learn things, in my opinion, in a sentence. And the minute I started doing that, it was like all these buttons in my brain just started connecting, and everything, not that it immediately made sense, but like it just all of a sudden I could say something, and I could say a whole sentence, and someone would look at me and they'd be surprised, like, oh my God, and so I don't want to get too much deeper into this video or that. This is just a top, just kind of skim the top level of this, because it goes much deeper than this, and I can talk about this thing 1,000 ways. Oh, Anki, that's the name of the application, by the way. So just sorry that I didn't throw that in there earlier. Anki, A-N-K-I, look it up. So my advice, you got to commit to it, right? Mentally, hard commit. You have to dedicate, man. Anything in life that's worth having, okay, it takes work. And you have to dedicate yourself to it. If you half-ass it, you're not going to learn it, especially with a language, okay? Your brain, especially if you're learning as an adult, it's too unforgiving. There's too many things that you've already learned, and especially language. If you only know one language like myself, your brain has to like completely reconnect the neurons, and it's ugly, man. It's ugly, and it's painful, and I would have headaches and all this wild shit. I couldn't sleep. But eventually it pays off, okay? So don't give up, hard commit to it. Use kind of what I gave you as an example in a way to learn, and that can be your starting base, and you're gonna be frustrated, and it's gonna suck. It is going to suck. But I tell you what, man, if you do that and you care and you value it, when it pays off, it's unlike anything you will ever do in your life, because it will mean so much to you, because only you know the struggle of learning it. Only you know the battle that you had to go through to do that, to make that accomplishment, and no one can take that away from you. There's nothing anyone can do to detract that from you. You earn that, okay? So with that said, to all those of you out there that are learning Japanese, keep up at it, man. I'm not saying throw everything else out the door, the baby with the bathwater, all that stuff. I'm just saying re-strategize in terms of how you learn, okay? And I'll go into Anki in another video probably, but use it, learn it. Anki will help you, and the more you commit to it, the faster you learn, the more effectively you learn it, okay? So with that said, I'm gonna get out of here, and just keep it up, man. I mean, improve yourself every day. That's the point of this channel, to improve yourself, okay? This is just one aspect, but make a point to do it, okay? In Japanese, the saying would be like, Mainichi jotatsu shiyou. Okay, let's improve every day. All right, guys, ganbatte.